Imagine, if you can, the earth beneath you just suddenly shifting at midnight. No warning. Not just a little tremor, but a really violent shake. Enough to trigger landslides, bring down homes, to turn everything upside down. And this is happening in a rugged, mountainous area. That's exactly what millions in eastern Afghanistan experienced recently. It's just a stark, terrifying reality. So today, we're taking a deep dive into that powerful earthquake. But our mission here goes beyond just the immediate shockwaves. We're going to explore the deeper layers of challenges facing the nation, pulling directly from the stack of sources you've given us. Our goal is really to give you those aha moments, a shortcut to being well-informed without getting totally overwhelmed by all the information out there. Okay, let's dive in.
And when you do dive in, something becomes clear almost immediately. A natural disaster like this earthquake, it never just happens in isolation, does it? It instantly intersects with, and frankly, brutally exposes an already complex humanitarian landscape. What's really revealing here isn't just the geology, though that's important. It's how an event like this acts as a kind of brutal stress test, not just on roads and buildings, but on the very fabric of human resilience itself. It shines a harsh light on these profound pre-existing layers of vulnerability.
Yeah, profound is definitely the word. So let's start with the Earth's fury itself, the raw power of this event. We're talking about a magnitude 6.0 earthquake. That's powerful enough to be truly devastating, especially when you remember that each whole number increase on that scale means roughly, 32 times more energy released?
Exactly. Huge difference.
It hit 4 provinces in eastern Afghanistan around midnight on a Sunday. The epicenter was about 27 kilometers, that's maybe 17 miles, from Jalalabad, and about 140 kilometers, say 87 miles, from Kabul, the capital. But the worst affected region, according to our sources, seems to be Kunar province. Really rugged, mountainous place, and it saw terrifying landslides, even some flooding.
Okay, so the crucial question then becomes, why was this particular quake so destructive? What made it so bad? And the critical observation here, the thing that really stands out in the data, is its shallow depth.
Shallow depth, right.
The earthquake originated just 8 kilometers deep. That's very, very close to the Earth's surface. And shallow quakes like that, they're known to cause significantly greater destruction than deeper ones of the same magnitude.
Why is that exactly?
Well, simply put, the seismic energy has far less distance to travel, and therefore dissipates much less before it hits communities, buildings, people on the surface.
Makes sense. More punch.
Exactly. And compounding this, the U.S. Geological Survey, the USGS, they recorded at least 5 aftershocks throughout that night.
5. Wow.
Yeah, including a 4.5 magnitude quake that hit in the same province just 20 minutes after the first big one.
Oh, man. Imagine going through the initial shock and then the earth just keeps shaking through the night. Unbelievable.
It's terrifying. Just constant fear and uncertainty.
It really is an unimaginable scenario. And the human cost is, it's heartbreaking. The USGS estimated that over 1.2 million people likely felt strong or very strong shaking. Can you even begin to wrap your head around the sheer scale of terror and chaos that and tragically, but as more information trickled in, those numbers sadly went up. An Afghan Interior Ministry spokesperson, cited by Reuters, reported an updated death toll, 622 dead, and more than 1,500 injured.
And those are just the confirmed figures, right?
Exactly. Taliban-led health authorities were apparently still working to confirm figures in some of the really remote areas, so the true impact could, still be unfolding. We're talking about specific districts in Kunar province being hit hard: Nur Gul, Soki, Watpur, Manogi, and Chapadare. And here's where the grim reality really sinks in for me. It's not just the raw numbers, awful as they are. It's how this disaster just ruthlessly exposes vulnerabilities that are sort of built directly into the very landscape and the structures these communities live in.
Precisely. That environment isn't just a passive backdrop. It's an active participant in magnifying the disaster scale. It shapes everything. When we look at Kunar province, for example, its highly mountainous terrain means landslides aren't just a possibility during an earthquake, they're almost an expectation. And that drastically complicates any rescue efforts. Which brings us to this idea of a fragile landscape, where the geography and the infrastructure itself are key players in the tragedy.
And our sources really paint a picture of why this region is so vulnerable. Kunar province, as you said, extremely mountainous. That immediately tells you why landslides are such a huge concern and how much that complicates rescue work. Just getting around must be incredibly difficult.
That's extremely.
Then you have Jalalabad nearby. It's described as a bustling trade city, Afghanistan's fifth largest city, municipal population around 300,000, maybe much larger in the metro area. It's strategically important, close to Pakistan, a key border crossing there. The sources also mention its agriculture, citrus fruit, rice, and the Kabul River flowing through it. But what really stands out and what seems to amplify the disaster is the type of construction. While Jalalabad itself has mostly low-rise concrete and brick buildings, the outlying areas, especially in those mountainous regions near the Pakistan border, well, they feature homes built of mud bricks and wood. And they're often described as being of, quote, poor construction.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that type of infrastructure, it just drastically amplifies the human cost when a seismic event like this happens. These aren't just poorly built homes in some abstract sense. Our sources indicate they're often constructed from, sun-dried mud bricks, maybe some roughly cut timber.
Stuff that keeps the weather out, basically.
Exactly. Materials designed to keep out the elements, maybe, but certainly not designed to absorb the shock waves of a shallow magnitude 6.0 quake.
Ugh.
They simply aren't built to withstand those kinds of forces. They pancake. They crumble.
Yeah.
So imagine these homes, sometimes perched precariously on mountainsides, literally collapsing, and sometimes triggering landslides themselves.
It makes them incredibly vulnerable to these shallow earthquakes.
Absolutely. And this is why rescuers face such immense difficulties in these remote mountainous areas. The terrain itself is a massive challenge, obviously. But when homes become death traps and the few roads that exist are blocked by debris, well, just getting help to those trapped or injured becomes a logistical nightmare.
A nightmare, yeah.
The physical landscape, combined with the, let's say, the structural integrity or lack thereof of the homes, it directly dictates the scale of casualties and the pace of any possible recovery. Every collapsed dwelling is a potential grave, and every rescue operation turns into this brutal battle against treacherous terrain.
It's a truly heartbreaking cycle of vulnerability, isn't it? Where these pre-existing conditions just turn a natural phenomenon into an even greater human catastrophe. But the challenges don't stop there, unfortunately. This earthquake didn't hit in a vacuum. It landed right on top of a nation already grappling with these profound compounding crises. So let's move to those deeper roots of vulnerability, what our sources are calling Afghanistan's compounding crises. They highlight that since the Taliban regained control back in 2021, foreign aid to Afghanistan has been significantly slashed.
Hugely.
Yeah. That's not just a line item on a budget. It immediately undercuts the country's ability to respond to any disaster, let alone something this big, especially in an already deeply impoverished nation. The economic fragility is just stark. About 85% of the Afghan population, according to the UN Development Program, lives on less than $1 a day.
Less than $1 a day. Think about that.
It's almost impossible to comprehend. So, given this, this unprecedented combination of factors, the aid cuts, the poverty, the social restrictions, we'll get into what's the most insidious challenge, what do these communities face in just trying to start the process of recovery? What does our source material tell us about that specific hurdle?
That really is the crux of it, isn't it? Because the most insidious challenge, I think, is the systemic erosion of resilience itself. It's not just a lack of money or supplies, though that's critical. It's a deliberate dismantling in some ways of the social and economic safety nets that might have existed. What truly stands out here is how these interconnected challenges, the lack of international aid, the extreme economic hardship, the social restrictions, and these mass deportations, we're seeing how they create this perfect storm. A storm that makes recovery from a natural disaster incredibly, incredibly difficult. Since returning to power, the Taliban has issued numerous restrictive edicts. We know about the bans on women from most paid work, girls from secondary education,
Widely reported.
and restrictions on women in many areas of public life, walking in parks, even speaking in public sometimes. These policies, according to the sources, have fueled a significant refugee crisis. Many people have fled, trying to get to neighboring countries like Iran and Pakistan, often without proper documents, just trying to escape what the sources describe as an oppressive regime.
And it's not just people fleeing out, is it? There's this complex, ongoing refugee and deportation crisis that's adding immense pressure in the other direction, too. Pakistan, for instance, has taken in Afghans for decades, literally decades, but officials there are now saying their public services just can't cope with the recent influx.
They're overwhelmed.
Yeah. And as a result, both Pakistan and Afghanistan have actually stepped up deportations in recent months. People are being sent back. We also see Iran cracking down on foreigners who are there illegally, as they put it, since around October 2023. And our sources even mention how regional instability, things like the Israel-Iran conflict over the summer, added yet another layer. It forced many Afghans who had fled to Iran to then flee again, often back to Afghanistan, because of things like Israeli airstrikes. It just swells the ranks of returnees to a country that's already overstretched.
It's just layer upon layer of displacement and pressure.
The numbers are truly stark. A June report by UNHCR, that's the UN's refugee agency, states that at least 1.2 million Afghans have been forced to return from Iran and Pakistan just so far this year.
1.2 million. This year alone.
Yeah, that's a massive population movement, all funneling back into a country already at its breaking point. It severely impacts its capacity to absorb any kind of shock, let alone a major natural disaster like this earthquake.
Exactly. I mean, when you have a population that is already deeply impoverished, where international aid has been drastically cut, and where a significant portion is being displaced or actively forced to return, their resilience to something like an earthquake is just critically undermined. There's almost nothing left.
The buffer is gone.
Completely gone. And the social restrictions, particularly those impacting women, they further limit the capacity of communities to organize, to respond effectively. They cut off vital contributions to household incomes, critical social support networks.
Right.
Imagine, just try to picture, a single mother already struggling to feed her kids on less than that $1 a day we talked about. Now, suddenly, she's made homeless by the earthquake. She has no safety net. And she's forbidden by official edicts from working to try and rebuild their lives.
It's almost unthinkable.
That's the kind of compounding despair our sources paint. It's this multi-layered crisis where each element just makes the others worse. It creates a humanitarian situation that is incredibly difficult to navigate, even without the added devastation of a major earthquake.
It's a sobering picture, truly. We've seen today how an earthquake, even one like this magnitude 6.0, can reveal so many deeper layers of vulnerability in a nation. We started with the immediate, raw impact of that shallow, powerful quake, hitting eastern Afghanistan around midnight, causing hundreds of deaths, thousands of injuries. The tragic human cost, as we discussed, is amplified by the region's fragile infrastructure, those homes of mud and stone in that difficult mountainous terrain.
Making it particularly susceptible.
Yeah, making it particularly susceptible to this kind of seismic event and making rescue efforts just incredibly difficult. But this deep dive, I think, has shown us that the tremors in Afghanistan aren't just geological, they're also socioeconomic, they're political. The broader humanitarian crisis looms large, the international aid slashed since 2021, the deep poverty, 85% living on less than $1 a day, the social restrictions we just talked about, and that immense pressure of refugee flows and deportations, all of these factors just compound the disaster. They make recovery seem like an almost insurmountable challenge for so many people there.
And this naturally leads us, and hopefully you, the listener, to ask a crucial question to consider. In a world where we're seeing more frequent and intense natural disasters, how do we best support nations and communities where the effects are so brutally magnified by ongoing political and humanitarian crises? And, perhaps more importantly, what role can international and local responses actually play in breaking this cycle of vulnerability rather than just, patching over the immediate wounds time and time again?
That's a powerful question to leave you with. Definitely one that demands more than easy answers. Thank